Good evening and welcome to Inside Government for the fall 2019 semester here at QU Community College. This is a show that is put on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, and WDNR, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Earlier this month, our guest was elected to a fourth term as the mayor of the city of Auburn. In January, Mayor Michael D. Quill will be either lead the current council of 5 Democrats or will get a Republican to join the group, with one Democrat leaving, the first time in 4 years. That will be decided over the next couple of days, or may be decided now for all we know, as we tape on Tuesday afternoon with absentee ballots being counted. We've asked the mayor on to talk about not only his victorious campaign, but the issues facing the city of Auburn in the upcoming weeks and months, including the news yesterday that Auburn might lose its minor league baseball franchise, the Auburn Doubledays. Welcome back, and congratulations on your win.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
So we'll talk about elections in a second. I know
Sure.
there's some brewing news as you were coming in. We'll talk about that. But obviously it is November, so all eyes turn to baseball, it seems, at least in the city of Auburn. I think you're getting some calls and some questions about that. Can you tell us what's happening with the Auburn Doubledays, with some decisions that have been made by or are being proposed by Major League Baseball?
Well, what it looks like, if Major League Baseball comes true to their word, Auburn will not have a ball team next year, or 2 years from now. Okay. They will play. It's my understanding they will play next year, but the following year, most of the minor league teams in the country will be closed down.
And they're talking about creating this dream league and all this other. So has a final decision been made?
Not to the best of our knowledge.
Because there's still winter meetings to occur yet, correct?
Jeff Dygert was on a conference, or city manager was on a conference call last week. He has upcoming winter meetings coming up, and they're hoping to get a better breakdown as to what's going on, whether in fact it is going to happen, not going to happen, what are we going to do.
But Auburn is at the mercy, as it was 25 years ago when the park was rebuilt in 1994, 1993, 94, because of Major League Baseball. They hold literally almost all the cards.
They own the cards.
So this would not go in effect most likely until another season from now.
2021.
How does that go? You know, they're not city employees, but that goes to the retention of staff and how you operate the operations. So do you think that will be part of the budget discussions when you get into in the spring?
It will have to be, at least some initial talks, because, as I say, it'll be 2 years down the road, but we have to prepare for that.
The city manager will be on next week, and we'll have more questions for him, but I do have a couple of just general. Is the city doing anything to challenge this?
We're not doing anything as of yet because we don't know what we're going to challenge. We don't want to put up a good fight, but fighting the wrong angle from it.
And normally, in a situation like this in the New York Penn League, with all the teams, you would be talking, saying, "What are you doing with the owners, and how are we working out this?" In this particular case, you are on behalf of the city of Auburn.
The city of Auburn is the owner.
So I know there has been multi-million valuations on the team in the past. I think you and I shared some governing magazine articles years ago, which had a value of somewhere, whether it was true or not, that's a different issue, of $4 to $5 million. Do you have a valuation right now?
I'm not aware of any, but that's not saying between Mr. Dygert and Mr. Rossi, our attorney. Mr. Rossi has done considerable work in regards to the ball team.
So he's advising Auburn Community Baseball and the city.
Absolutely.
You know, you've had proposals in the past to purchase, whether it's the whole team. I know there was proposals back in the 90s, but there was no guarantee that they would stay in Auburn. Right. Is there some buyer's remorse right now that the city should have looked at those differently?
None of us have a crystal ball. We could have been 100% right. We could have been 100% wrong. And if we were right, we'd have never heard about it. But if we were wrong, we'd hear about it.
So what's not clear, and I've read several stories on this in the last 24 hours, would Major League Baseball have to buy out, and again, Auburn's the oddity here, but there are other people who have teams in the New York Penn League that would be erased. I'm assuming they have major investments in those. They have banks that they're paying.
Yeah.
Does that mean that Major League Baseball would make a payment to the city of Auburn?
I haven't gone down the path that far. So
it's an asset, and they would be taking away the value of it.
Absolutely. We have heard from other team owners. midway through multi-million-dollar projects for their stadiums, and now the carpet is being pulled
So I was
off
going to
under
give, in my own mind, I was thinking back, and the team's no longer there, but I think it was Elmira. There was a guy named Clyde Small back then. I remember him leading this effort to put major investment in 93, 94. What would have happened if 5 years later, Major League Baseball said goodbye? They and the city would have had bonds that are, you're paid off. Forget the turf issue for a second. The city is free and clear of any debt on that right now.
That's correct.
Turf will be a different issue, which we'll get to in a second. If you saw the money coming to the city, what would you like to see done with it?
I think it'd be,
I know where I would put it, but that's a different story.
We're not talking about this traffic lights.
Well, you keep saying it's multi-million-dollar to time them. Here's the perfect one shot.
I don't think we are going to be receiving anything from the major leagues.
Oh, okay.
I don't see that in the cards. But, with a mayor and 4 council members, we all have our priorities, and we have to come together as to what we think, what would be best served. Public safety building is one thing,
Well, I asked, so there's a serious piece to this. So in the past, the city, and Bruce Clifford the late Bruce Clifford was a perfect example of this. I think he got the city got some cash windfalls in the late 80s, and he invested specifically in one-time purchases. Needed some equipment rather than bond. Do that. You could pay down city bonds. Either the city bonds they're being paid by the college to the Falcon Park, or you could reduce debt overall.
And that's where our comptroller, we have all the faith in the world, and would be a terrific asset. What is the recommendation of our comptroller, which way we should go? Should we do it? Mr. Clifford was great with figures, he really was, but what is in the best interest? Our buildings now, some of our buildings need some repairs that have been put off.
So this could be a capital infusion.
Absolutely.
So what happens to Falcon Park in your mind?
Thankfully, we have a great partnership with Quill Community College, and hopefully that will continue.
Do you see you asking that they take over the 3 or 4 months that they're not operating it, take it over, and still, however they do their SUNY reimbursement, and still pay off the bonds so that city staff isn't involved anymore?
Yeah. Well, if the ball team is not playing ball there, the only time it would be open or utilized is if the college or nearby colleges have an event going on, and then that will have to be figured out how we would take care of that.
And so there is the possibility that this might all go away. There's this also possibility of a dream league, which they're talking about, which would be undesignated team players, as I understand.
Yep.
So we'll know sometime in the future.
I just received, before I come up, I received a phone call from the Albany newspaper, wanting to know what's going on, and I see Congressman Kako had a statement out sometime this afternoon in regards to it, so it has everyone in a tizzy as to which way we're going.
I know Senator Schumer had some quotes in yesterday.
He did.
As well. Yes. On this issue of Falcon Park and the city and the college, the governor is a big proponent of consolidation, and one of those things that you all had to do as municipalities is look at consolidation, and you would get credits or you would get cash back. Obviously, there was a partnership with the city as being a local government entity and the college being a local government.
Correct.
Did you ever get reimbursed for any money from the state as of yet?
I want to say no, but I can't say anything more than 70% certain.
Don't have Jeff Dygert watch this show, because these all be remodified for him next week. So any surprises 2 weeks ago?
No, I certainly would have liked a little different outcome in a few races. No one likes to go to absentees. I don't know if you ever faced that or not.
No, I always had a great conversation with Ann Bunker. We either won big or we lost big. There was none of this dragging it out in serial form. So
my first race came down to a absentee vote, and that was a long 2 or 3. It was a long week waiting for it, I think it was, and then the 2 or 3 days afterwards it was.
And now this has been extended because of this whole new voting system.
Early voting system,
which we'll talk to Senator Helming about on Thursday. So, a couple questions about your race.
Yes.
Were you surprised that Tim Lattimore ran against you for a 4th time?
No.
Okay.
And it would probably be a 5th time.
Does that mean that you might be running again?
Never say never. I have no idea. I haven't even started my 4th term yet. But what my point being, if I'm going to be there, I'm sure Tim will be there. And I'm sure Tim will be there even if Mike Quill isn't there.
So Well, because that would have been his 5th run
Yes.
for
Yes.
mayor. So, and the oddity here is that you will serve a tie-breaking 4th term that his dad
had,
served
correct.
Back in the 80s and 70s, so
Yep.
60s, 70s, and 80s. So right now, as we left it, is a cliffhanger, and we haven't heard anything before I came on, but maybe you know something different. Republican Tim LaCastro had about a 29 vote lead on Dia Carbajal, who's an incumbent counselor.
Correct.
There were, I think, 308 absentees out, 43 affidavits. They're counting today. Do you know anything differently?
We're getting spot reports from the election where they're counting them, but nothing that I am willing to share at this point. It's because it's really unofficial, and it would be unfair to the candidates as well as to the source.
And so the other one that does look like it was decided, though, today has been this issue of Gwen Weber-McLeod, who is challenging legislator Michael Didio.
Correct.
And that was 14 votes on election night with 590, but now it looks like, excuse me, it was not 14 votes. It was 1 vote.
Yep.
But the lead that Mr. Didio has received looks like it's about 13 more.
13.
So you do see him as the winner of that?
That's the way I'm reading that, correct. That's why it's important. People have to realize their vote does count.
Right.
When you get down to 30, any number of votes, every vote counts, and you should do your best to get out. In this day and age with absentee, early voting, so many different ways to go.
So it looks like Heidi Nightingale. So Democrats of the 3 seats in the city,
right.
Democrats look like they've won 2.
2.
Trish Otley is replacing Pat Mahunak, who was termed out.
Correct.
And then Joe Bennett had decided not to run for re-election. He was a Democrat, then he became a Republican,
correct.
and it looks like it's gone to the Democratic line, correct?
That's the way it looks at this point.
And you look at those as being 2 wins there, and then obviously Hans Petcher has won, is a conservative Republican in the southern part, beating Joe DeForest. So it is tough to overcome that gap of 43. Of the votes of the 29 as you go. Are you doing anything right now to bring Mr. LaCastro up to speed? Because just a preface here. Normally with absentees, they would have started last week under the old system.
Right.
We have a much smaller window. There's less time to come up to speed. So are you doing anything now to bring him up to speed?
As of today, no. But depending on the final count, that will change dramatically.
So bringing him into executive sessions is done in the past.
In the city manager, to the best of my knowledge, has always brought a new council member or mayor in and discussed
whoever the manager is.
Whoever it is, and whoever the winner is, and to bring them up to speed so they have some idea. So when they are invited into executive sessions, for example, they'll have somewhat of a basic idea. If Mr. LaCastro is the winner, I plan to meet with him and sit down, ask him, what can we help him with? We want him to come up to speed really very rapidly, because it's crucial.
And not all city managers do that. I remember in my case, the city manager did not reach out to the 3 new members of council at that time, but the mayor did. Mayor Locker did. He made sure he did.
Did the city manager stay long after the 3 new?
No, he was literally gone 45 days later, but
Okay.
he had taken another job, not telling us that he had applied for another job at the same time.
All
So
right.
maybe he knew something we did not, or 60 days. So if and again, I say this on the premise that it's tough to overcome losses you were always ahead in your absentees from election night to that, and depending on how well your parties do of getting absentee ballots out, and obviously in the Weber-Didio race, which is a high-profile race, and it's broken Republican, there's a likelihood that some of those have broken Republican as well.
Absolutely.
How would that change the dynamics of going from 5 Democrats? And I know this was an issue during the campaign.
Sure.
Or at least it seemed to be an issue, except the media didn't buy into that.
Well, the media kept asking questions about it.
But in the end, they didn't say it was a problem when they endorsed all of you, all the incumbents.
No, not whatsoever. At the same time, what the perception of everyone is, they still have the right to vote. And if they felt that we had too many Democrats, they certainly had the ability to vote against it.
So do you think it will change the dynamics of if it became, instead of 5-0, 4-1?
It's going to change the dynamics in one way, shape, or form. It will. We never, since I've been on council, we never sat and discussed how we're going to vote or what we're going to vote. if someone asked me a question, Tom McNabb would do it every once in a while. Say, what do you think of this or that? And we discuss it. So nothing was preconceived. I know people won't believe that, but it was never preconceived before we went into a council meeting. So, but knowing the people that I've worked with as counselors, I have an idea of what their thoughts are, what they feel is appropriate, what's right. And if Mr. LaCastro is successful, I would hope he would be open and frank with us and just be upfront about things. And I'm not saying he wouldn't be, but I'm just...
Well, and speaking of Mr. McNabb, his wife was there with you on election. I saw her in the photo on the cover. But one change that I was not aware of until it came up at the forum, I think at the Holiday Inn with the Wednesday morning roundtable, and then was reinforced here in the studio was, as the 5 Democrats, you could not do a caucus.
Right.
Because it's illegal under open meetings law. That does change, though, if there's a Republican now.
That's correct.
He could be a caucus of 1, which is a lonely place, but you could meet as a caucus, correct?
That's my understanding. And you know, I honestly, in the last, 12 years, I don't ever remember we may have had one caucus.
So you don't see that being something that comes about?
No. And as I used to tease Councilor Smith, if we had...
Who was a Republican?
I says, you can join in, just sign the paperwork, and we'll come on right in with this. So
I'm not thinking he did.
No, he didn't.
So let's get to January.
Sure.
What's your biggest goal for 2020?
Probably the public safety building. That's been held back. We want to get that done.
So you get some DRI money, some downtown revitalization initiative money from funding from the state. How much is that roughly?
You can put me on a spot.
But you've got
total
between
about
that
$2 or $3 million.
Right,
we have
and you got some other grants in there.
That's
so
correct.
When do you see this? This is now far enough along that you see it getting built.
Absolutely.
You see it being built in 2020?
I think it will be a push to get it done in 2020, but earlier in 2021, more than likely.
And then finished in that same year?
Yeah.
How long do you think it'll take to build?
I've asked staff for some comments on that, and I've really never gotten a clear answer because there's so many variables in the air right now. But it's more than just building a public safety building, because we want to move the court system from the old post office to Market Street. That'll be some realignment of buildings and operations.
Oh, so you may not get rid of the, there was talk, and I think it's come up on time to time, as being to see if you could find a private developer to just deal with the firehouse. You might move other operations into that building?
Personally, and I think council is supportive of this, of moving city court into the old fire, which will be the old fire station, taking a portion of the fire station for police use, for a sally port, for, when they have a guest come in, so they have a place to go. So I
have to remember that when we have Sheriff Shank Skank in a few minutes. I'll have to use guest, not what I had in my question.
But all that, there's a lot of work has to be done, and we feel that what we're paying in a monthly rate for our court space will help offset some of the costs of construction.
And then that will be up to the county and whatnot, to what they want to do with that.
Absolutely.
That building.
Absolutely. At the same time, I still hope the county is interested in some way, shape, or form with a public safety building to capitalize on that.
So I want to get into the county. Well,
sure.
So what are you doing with the county right now when it does come to the public safety building? Where are you on that? Because I know they're in leadership transition as well.
We do not have anything definite or concrete from them, but at the same time, in fairness to them, we do not have anything definite or concrete as to what we're actually going to do. So that will be it'll be a hot topic for the first 6 months of the year.
And I want to go to the county in a moment, but one other question that came up during the campaign, if there were 3 issues, one was the public safety building, the other one was an all one-party city council, the other one was back-in parking downtown. Look at you just sighed. You see it changing?
No.
Okay.
Back-in parking is here to stay. The only thing we can do, and we've done some research in the last few weeks, we can start doing a survey as to the accident rates downtown, but back-in parking is here to stay. The way I interpret it, the only other alternative is for parallel parking. And if we go with parallel, we lose 44 spaces.
But you do see right now that you're set up in the garage where you give 2 hours free parking is here to stay.
I hope so.
Has that increased?
I haven't looked at any figures in that.
So you mentioned the county, a couple of things on the county. One is you sit on the Cayuga Economic Development Agency, CEDA.
I do not.
Oh, you do not?
Our city manager has.
He's got the city slot. Okay.
He does. When it was first formed, I was a member of it, a voting member, but over the years we've changed it.
So last year the county funded CEDA up at $350 last year, 2018. Right. 2019 they cut it by $50,000, and now there's a proposal to cut it out
another 50.
Well, or all together.
Correct.
Thoughts, having been a member of that and being involved in economic development?
I feel it would be a very big mistake. I do. They do a terrific job. Tracy and everyone, all of our staff there.
It's Tracy Verrier, the executive director.
I was just at a meeting Friday with a local manufacturer, talking with them what their wants and needs. CEDA would play a very big part in that, as they have in the past. Tracy and her staff are very, very knowledgeable what's available, how to get from point A to point B, going through all the side roads.
Do you know what the motivation is to cut? I mean, this is obviously a cut last year was based on the issue in part was they had a fund balance. And originally, Justin Woods, the then county administrator, said, let's take $25,000 out to reduce your fund balance. Another 25 was suggested by your then opponent, or your opponent this year, Tim Lattimore, and I think he wanted to use that money for a grant writer. I don't know if that ever occurred. But now this is a much larger, do they not understand?
I think they do. You know, in our county, I'm going to be very free with my thoughts here, but our county is almost like three different areas. We have the north end, we have the south end, and we have the central.
Which is not just the city of Auburn; it's the donut town.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, if you divide the state, or the county equally in three parts, we'd have that. What affects people in the north? For example, Lake Ontario, the people in the south or the central section, it's not a priority as it is with them. Economic development may not be a priority. It is with the central section, but not necessarily the south or the north. So it's
except for rare pockets like Aurora.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
and I'm not faulting anyone because.
But this is a big issue.
Absolutely. So I don't know what the rhyme or reason is to this. Everyone wants to cut back, wants to cut money. Years ago, the county approached the city, says, well, you should contribute X amount of dollars.
Well, I was going to ask that. So right now, currently, you're the Auburn Industrial Development Authority, which
right, I am
a member of, you do pay some fees to help CEDA exist.
Yes.
But between both IDAs, the county and the city, that does not get them through a fiscal year.
No.
On that. Should the city of Auburn kick in more money?
Sure. But how about the town of Aurelius? And
I was going to ask that.
How about Port
What about the towns and the villages chip in?
If one is going to pay, I feel everyone should on a per capita or per diem, on a per capita. I'm fine with that, but it has to be equal.
That was one of the issues with the SROs, the school resource officers, when people went to Owasco and Senna and said, listen, you've got just a proportion of your students, and they didn't want to come up with money.
Yeah, but now it's resolved. So.
Last two questions on the county. It used to be the manager, the administrator, the chairman, and you all met regularly.
Correct.
Are you still meeting regularly?
No, we have met quite a few years.
So it wasn't just because they don't have an administrator right now?
It probably 3 years ago, 2 years ago, it fell off to. I want to blame the county, and hopefully they'll smile when I do, but they were going through a bit of a turmoil as to who was managing county operations. And
so they are still, just as a headline. And we did invite the chairman of the legislature to come on. He's declined, or his staff has declined on his behalf. You do have the largest municipality in Cayuga County.
Right.
What do you think the county needs to do when it comes to this leadership issue of professional full-time management or not?
Speaking as Mike Quill, not as mayor.
No, I'm asking you as mayor. You lead the largest block of voters in this county.
Ralph Stanbrook was a diamond in the rough. He whether you agree
Great guy.
Whether you agree with him or disagree with, he had the background. He knew how to work with people, how to accomplish goals. That was his military background, I believe. But not seeing anyone like that on the horizon, I almost think that an elected county official, county executive, would be the way to go.
So, shifting gears, last week City Council dealt with this issue of the opioid.
Yes, yes.
What exactly were you discussing last week?
We were involved in a nationwide suit against the manufacturers of the legal drugs. Mm-hmm. We were involved in that. Talking with our attorneys, we would be better served if we broke away from that national one into more of a state.
So have you decided to do that?
We voted on that last week and we passed that, so that's the direction we're going.
When will that case be decided? Any idea?
Probably fifth term.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So in that case, if you received money there, where would you like to see that invested?
I would want to see a lot of it reinvested into the care and help for the individuals involved.
So we have Nick's Ride for Friends coming on just right after you in a few minutes. As far as the city's concerned, have opioid-related deaths leveled off or declined from their high of a couple of years ago, or is this still a crisis the city's dealing with?
It's still a crisis, but I can't give you the exact figures as to whether we're up or down or whatever. So common sense tells me that it's at the very least stable, but I would say it's probably increasing more than that.
So occasionally when I moderate forums, I learn something, or I learn there's been misinformation. So one of the candidates, when your forum occurred, said that the city was going to raise sales tax, I think, by 0.25%. Are you?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I've been there a long time. I've never heard.
So this is not on the agenda.
No.
But if you were,
it hasn't even been spoken of in jest.
If you were going to do it, what would you? How would you do it?
I hope I'm not in a position where I have to do it.
No, but you have to have the state legislature agree to this as well. This is not just, you can't just arbitrarily go say we're going to go to 8.25%.
No, absolutely not.
How are sales tax revenues for the city?
The last I heard, they were up slightly. So,
any particular driver you think? Do you think it's because of the economy? Do you think general business climate in the city of Auburn? The county's up as well. Am I correct on that? But that
I'm certainly not the person who would be in tune to that. I wish we'd have our comptroller here, but
well, we'll have the manager here last.
Okay.
So, final question for you: next week's the holiday parade, Christmas parade.
Correct.
Next Saturday, will you be taking part?
Absolutely. Hopefully, we have one of our grandchildren sick this week. Hopefully, they'll all be better.
All
and my
walking
wife
with
Joan, we enjoy we enjoy the parade, and as much we enjoy the caroling on City Hall steps, which this time of year, as you know, it's beautiful and it's lit up with the tree and everything. So I would hope everyone comes out and sees this. And
starts at 6 o'clock. You'll be walking down from East Hill all the way through, wrap around.
The only thing different, we don't go as far as the Veterans Park. We go around Loop Road.
So you can
end up at City Hall once again.
And you'll do the countdown that day.
Absolutely. I've been practicing.
You've been practicing. So we want to thank, we hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
We want to thank Mayor Michael D. Quill for joining us to give us a city update. And congratulations on your recent victory. I hope you'll come back in the spring to give us some updates on some matters that you'll be working on.
I'll be glad to anytime you call.
We'll return in just a moment with a new edition of Beyond the Front Page with Joel Campanella of Nick's Ride for Friends and one of his board members, Cuyahoga County Sheriff Brian Skank, and they will be here to talk about Nick's Rides for Friends. We will be back next week with our we'll be back on Thursday with 2 more shows. We'll have an Albany update with New York State Senator Pamela Helming, and an Owasco Lake update with Dr. Adam Effler, the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council's Executive Director. If you read Sunday Citizen, you know there's some funding issues going on there as well. We'll have 2 back-to-back episodes of Inside Government on Thursday, and we'll finish our fall 2019 semester here at the college with New York State Senator John DeFrancisco talking about his new book, Never Say Never. And City Manager Jeff Geiger will finish us off with a city update, and we will be talking about sales tax and baseball. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your questions and thoughts for future guests to Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page. You can send your questions by email to cozguytho@aol.com or by mail to Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you'll stay tuned to join us for Beyond the Front Page in just a moment. We'll be right back.